good. I don't know what this is, but it smacked the bomber. Probably a redfish. Oh yeah, really nice red. Oh goodness. Oh smokes. Yeah, it's a redfish. Smoked the bomber. Smoked it. What an absolute tank on that bomber, baby. Beautiful, beautiful 34-inch redfish. Absolute tank. Hit that bomber like a freight train and took off. Let's get him. What's going on, Salt Strong Nation? It's Matt and the Yak, and I got 8 rods in the back. And today I want to tell you about 3 tips that are going to help you catch bigger fish on a more consistent basis. Now, the reason these work is because they absolutely just make sense. Not only that, but they tap into fish biology, taps into these fish's feeding pattern, and it taps into a little bit of every key factor you need to kind of trigger these strikes from big fish. So let's go ahead and get into that right now. So now, during the summertime, there's a lot of smaller bait out right now. There's a lot of fresh hatch out, and a lot of the smaller fry bait is running around the flats, and you can see it on the surface many times throughout the day. That means that there is a plentiful food source for a lot of these fish out there. So a lot of these mid-range and small fish are feeding very heavily on the smaller fry bait. However, these large fish do not want to expend all of their energy, all of their calories into chasing down a bunch of small meals. So what they do is they tend to feed on larger bait. Yes, it's true, you want to match the hatch, and I completely agree with that. But a way to kind of trigger these bigger bites is to unmatch the hatch and go with something bigger. Now, with all this small fry bait that's out on the flats, the Slam Shady, the Gold Digger, as well as the Fred Paddletail would be great options to throw with all of this fry bait. And don't get me wrong, I have been throwing them quite consistently as Fred has been really performing for me lately. So it works. There's no doubt that it is working consistently for me. Now, what I do is if I need to trigger a bigger bite, and sometimes what I'll do is I'll throw bigger baits. So in tournament situations, or even if you're targeting larger fish, definitely be looking to throw a profile that's larger than what is commonly found out on the flats. Now, this Slam Shady bomber, this 5-inch Paddletail, has a really great profile on it, and it has been absolutely performing for me lately. And just the other day caught a 33-inch redfish, and then I followed up right behind that with a 27, almost 28-inch trout on the Gold Digger, same size profile, but the Gold Digger color. Now, I would like to let you know that these bombers are BOGO, buy one, get one free in our tackle shop right now. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and check that out. So big fish, definitely dial in on these big baits when there is a lot of smaller bait out on the flats. Like I said, the reason for that is because those larger fish don't want to spend a lot of calories trying to chase down a lot of small meals. So if they can find a larger meal that's easy for them, then they will much rather take that over consuming a lot of smaller versions. I was just recently in a situation where I kept catching a lot of smaller redfish. I'd caught 12 redfish that were all under 24 inches. So what did I do? I switched to a bigger profile, and that bigger profile keyed some really big bites. So I know if you go a little bit above the norm, you can often weed through some of those smaller fish that may not be as willing to chase down the big bait. Those bigger fish will be willing to jump on it if it's an easy meal. That gets us to our second point. First point being bigger baits. Second point being the retrieve of these bigger baits. Your retrieve is super important. Yes, a steady retrieve often works, and it can be what these fish are looking for. But with trying to key in these bites with these bigger fish, they are super smart, and they're often less likely to chase down a bait if it's not so much easy for them, because these fish do often, redfish especially, they often dig down in the bottom for their meals. They're very smart, so getting to them to react to a swimming paddletail can often be a little bit tougher because they are very smart and less likely to chase down a bait. So what I've figured out is you can actually change your retrieve with one of these paddletails that will actually help you trigger those strikes from these bigger fish, because it just makes it easier for them to commit to a bait like this. Now, as I said, these bigger fish are going to want a meal that they can have easily, as well as that will be more calories for them to consume with less work. So your retrieve should make it as easy as possible for these big fish to key in on your bait, so that they'll choose it over all of the other bait out there in the water. That's super important, and there's a retrieval method that can really help. So let's go ahead and take a look at that now. Okay, so the way I'm talking about is I'm actually showing you this with the Slam Shady Bomber, and I do have this rigged on a 1/8 ounce Haas Helix hook. That is for a very specific reason, because the way I'm fishing this is very slow, but I want it to be able to maintain its weedless properties, as well as have a slow fall on its decline, because the way I'm fishing this is almost as if I'm fishing it like a very slow jerk shad. I am talking about fishing this in the 2 to at the most 5 foot water column. If you're fishing anything more than that, I would really suggest a redfish eye jig head, as those would help the bait fall through that water column a little bit better. But if you're fishing in the 2 to 4 foot range, I would suggest an 1/8 ounce Haas Helix hook, because it has a really good glide to it as that bait falls. Now let's talk about actual retrieval, and I'll go ahead and show you that now. So in talking about your retrieve, as I said, what you want to do is a very specific style of action. So what I want to do is take my bomber and I'll throw it out. Now once I cast it out, I'll throw it out there, and I'll give it plenty of time for that bait to fall to the bottom. Now, as I said, I'm targeting the 2 to 4 foot water column, and I want to make sure that bait can get all the way down there. Now, the reason I said I'm using the Haas Helix hook is because where I'm targeting, there is bottom structure, including grass and kind of broken shelly bottom in some places. But with that 1/8 ounce Haas Helix hook, it's able to glide to the bottom. Those are the types of places you want to target, and you can find those places really easily by using the Smart Fishing Spots app. I do have this on my phone, and I'm able to find oyster bars by using the oyster bar layer, as well as seagrass by using the seagrass layer. So this has been super helpful for me as an angler, because I'm just able to go target areas where I know the fish should be. And this is a great tool to help me find those areas, because this will tell me where they are, and it also tells me the best times to go fish those areas. So if you haven't seen that yet, be sure to check it out. Bunch of great information there. It's a game changer for me, as well as all of the other fishing coaches. But let's go ahead and get back to how to catch these bigger fish while you're on the water. So once that bait's out there, I let it have plenty of time to settle to the bottom. I want to make sure that it gets down there to the bottom where those fish are at. In these warmer months, those fish tend to sit lower in the water column, because that's where the cooler water is. The sun is heating up the water temperature, so those fish are more likely to sit down at the bottom. So you want to allow your bait to get down there with them. Now, once that bait has reached bottom, what I'll start to do is just give it some slow hops. Do a slow, steady reel on the fall, just to get the slack out of the line. Now, as I'm letting that bait fall, I'm gonna be waiting for a strike, because as that bait is fluttering back down to the bottom, that's often when you'll trigger those bites. Now, another thing I'll like to do is I'll throw in some occasional pauses. I'll let it reach bottom, and I'll just let it stop. As I said, those redfish especially, they are smarter, and they often have their nose down. Bigger trout, they sit on bottom as well and look up. So when they see this coming out of the grass or going down into it, that's a great time for them to hit on it. But sometimes it can help to let it pause down there on bottom where those fish are at, and allow them to strike it when it's dead sticked. Once that bait has reached bottom, sometimes I'll give it a quick jerk, shad, twitch, twitch, pause. That can also help to trigger these strikes. But that action, although it can be effective, can often be very erratic and even spook fish. So as I'm letting this bait rise and fall, I want to do it in a very natural motion. I want to do it smooth. And that Haas Helix hook allows that bait to have a very natural presentation as it comes up, as well as when it falls. I want to maintain a tight line. I don't want any slack in my line. So as that bait falls, I do want to be reeling down and picking up that slack line. Now, as I said, the thing about this retrieval method is it's a lot slower than what you may be used to with these style baits, or even smaller baits. You know, we think the summertime months, you got to burn baits, you got to go fast, and the fish are moving around and they want to, you know, catch it on the swim. And though that may be often true, that will catch you a lot of fish. It can. But when you slow down your presentation in the summer and increase the size of your bait and do one more thing, you can often get some really big fish. And you want to know what that last thing is. And it's one of the most important things. So let's go ahead and talk about the last piece of the puzzle to catching these big fish. Now, as I said, the last piece of this puzzle is probably the most important, because one thing about bigger fish is they are super, super smart. They have gotten to be big fish by being smarter than all the rest. And that's because they use all of their senses when they feed. These bigger fish, they've gotten to be bigger because they're super, super smart. So you have to do absolutely everything you can to outsmart them. To catch big fish, you have to be smarter than these bigger fish. And a lot of people say fish are stupid, they're easy to catch. I'm here to tell you, small fish may be stupid, but big fish, trophy fish, the fish that you want to post to your social media and make all your friends jealous, those fish, they're smart, and they use all of their senses when they feed. So one of the biggest and most important things you can do when you target big fish is add scent. Now, scent is super important. I actually keep a lot of Dr. Juice out here with me. I do recommend the Dr. Juice saltwater slam scent. This is different than all the others. This is actually based on natural fish pheromones and hormones that actually fish release when they're spawning, when they're in fear, when they're in danger. You know, these are natural fish chemicals in this, and this is actually why it's proven to work again and again. It's different than, say, some of your other products that may puree up fish, or may you know, puree shrimp and put it in a bottle or whatever, you know, which I'm not saying that stuff doesn't work, but I am saying that this is more consistent because it's based on actual fish chemistry. So that makes more sense to me, and the results have shown it makes more sense to the fish as well. So these bigger fish, they feed a lot more on their olfactory senses, especially big redfish. They often are nose down, and these big redfish can be super hard to trigger bites from. And if they can't smell a bait, or if a bait smells off to them, say you had some sunscreen or something on your hands before you touch your bait, if that bait doesn't smell right, those fish are not gonna eat it. This Dr. Juice saltwater slam scent is a great way to add scent to your bait and make sure it doesn't have any scent that would cause these fish to turn away once your lure is presented in front of them. So by adding Dr. Juice inshore slam scent, you have actually completed the puzzle for catching big fish, especially during the summertime. Like now, when there is a lot of smaller bait out on the flats, you can switch to this larger profile with that right retrieve, and you can trigger some big bites by completing the puzzle. These trophy size fish, they are super scent oriented on their feeding patterns, and if something doesn't smell right, they're not gonna eat it at all. That's why they're so big, because they're so smart. So this is an excellent way to ensure that you can not only get their interest with the retrieve and the size of the bait, but this seals the deal for those big fish. Now, there's a special way that I like to add this. Yes, this can often be super messy and nasty, and you don't want to get it on your clothes, on your boat, on your hands, or anything or anywhere. So what I actually like to do is, this is my actual bag of bombers. I have actually already done this to this bag, but I will do it again just to show you exactly how I do it, because I think doing this is much better than just applying it to just the bait, because this actually creates an amazing environment for these baits for future if you want to add some in here. You see I've added a couple of the gold digger variation in there as well, so that I only have to carry one bag when I come out here on my boat. But I have a few of those different bait colors in there of that profile that I'm looking for, and what I'll do is I'll take my Dr. Juice Inshore Slam Scent and I'll go ahead and add a lot to that bag. I'm very generous because a little's good, a lot's better, right? So we add a lot to that, and then I just mix it around in there with those baits. I'll take that, store it away in my tackle box or wherever I keep my stuff, and it'll be ready for my next fishing trip. Now, every time I pull one of these out to go put it on my Haas Helix hook, it's ready, nice and coated with that Inshore Slam Scent, so that every time I reach one out of there, it's a good bait. And allowing that bait to soak in there or marinate, I'm sure does not hurt at all. Only allowing that bait to soak up that scent, that smell even better. So that's just a really great way to apply this. Not only keep your hands clean, save money on Dr. Juice by not spilling it everywhere, and catch really big fish. So if you're looking to target some of these really big fish that show up right now on the flats during some of these warmer months, monster snook, big speckled trout, big redfish, and obviously flounder love this as well. But I'm just telling you that this is tried and true. So in conclusion, I would like to point out that we do have the Slam Shady Bomber, the Haas Helix hook, as well as the Gold Digger Bomber and the Dr. Juice Inshore Slam Scent available in our tackle shop at fishstrong.com. So if you're interested in any of those, you can pick them up there. So not only can you get one pack of the bombers, you actually get 2 packs for the price of one. That's double the big fish. To me, that's a double no-brainer. I can tell you that these baits that retrieve, as well as this scent, all together, you have actually given yourself a recipe for really big fish. And not only do these baits produce those bigger fish, when they hit it like a freight train and will take you for an absolute ride. So if you're interested in them, you can find them in our tackle shop, or if you want to know where I caught those really big fish, I'm happy to tell you. We share all of that information with our insider members and our private insider community. So if you think those exclusive discounts and great fishing information is something you're interested in, be sure to check us out at saltstrong.com. And if you're new to Salt Strong, just know that we are the #1 online fishing club in America. We actually guarantee to help you find and catch more fish, save money on tackle, make friends while doing it, or it's free. So we hope to see you in the Salt Strong Insider Club soon, and thanks for watching.